Okay, this is, I'd like to ask you for your help with this individual. This is March 7th, wanted for possible touching of a 11-year-old girl in Manhattan, the east side of Manhattan, Lower Manhattan, in the First Avenue, 20th Street area. So we asked him with information. So he's a heavy-set individual, maybe as much as 400 pounds. And with information, we asked him. Tips hotline 1-800-577-TIPS.
Even more troubling, Commissioner, because he was in public. Oh,
I'm sorry?
Even more troubling because he was in public.
Well, it was in a store. Yes.
Tell us what happened. He walked in the store.
Just he was in a store and he approaches a young woman and grabbed her and touched her.
Initially, can you start to see how much the council was focusing on stop and frisk and how little they were discussing the budget in the hearing today?
No, I've been here many times.
It seemed like
When sometimes go.
it seemed like it got pretty heated in there. Any other reactions?
You know, I've been around a long time. Sometimes I get heated, sometimes I don't.
Commissioner, there was another incident in Brooklyn where a woman had a baby out on the street, left the child, and EMS had to come and save the child. Can you tell us some more about that?
Well, I can tell you about an incident in Brooklyn where a young woman had a call, 1054, it was at 80 kids, where police responded. The woman had a baby and said that someone gave her the baby on the street. Is that the case?
I thought she had a baby on the street.
Well, in other words, gave a baby to a woman on the street, a newborn baby. EMS came, police came, the baby was removed, I believe, to King County Hospital, but that's being investigated by the police. That's a newborn case in the 77th precinct. I'm not familiar with the other one.
That is it, yes.
What about all the anger over the stop and frisk and the surveillance of the victims around the city?
Well, I think if you look at the Bloomberg decade, I 10 years that they were in office, crime is down 34%. We haven't had a terrorist attack. 51% decrease in murders from the previous decade. I think the tactics and strategies that are being used are effective. There is concern with stop and frisk. Certainly I'm concerned about that. We know that some segments of the community are upset by that, but it is also a life-saving strategy, the policy of engagement, as we call it. 96% of the shooting victims in this city, 90% of the murder victims are people of color. We see ourselves as lifesavers, and the evidence of the effectiveness of the policies and strategies we have in place is the fact that there's been a 51% decrease in murders. In the previous decade, there were 11,058 murders. In this decade, there were 5,430. You can see it's a dramatic reduction. We are by far the safest big city in America. Nobody even comes close to us. That was not the case 2 decades ago. So I think you can see it in the feeling of safety that exists in the city. Having said that, we're the #1 terrorist threat. No question about it. This is where terrorists want to go. We have to do things according to the law to protect the city. I'm sure you're going to continue to do those things according to the law. We have an agreement. We have a stipulation signed by and developed by a federal judge called the revised Hampshire guidelines, which we adhere to scrupulously. Some people don't even recognize that it exists. So we, I believe, are using the right tactics and strategies. We understand that we have to make everybody happy. We work hard at having good relationships with the communities that we serve. We have an obligation to save lives and protect lives.
Are you open to changes?
Commissioner?
Mr. Commissioner, what about the calls for an IG? Are you
Well, obviously, I don't think we need it. I think there's plenty of oversight of the department that's in place. Anything that's passed, that's a law, we're going to adhere to the law, of course. But if you look at 5 district attorneys, all with corruption units, if you you look at the two U.S. attorneys, we have our own committee to combat police corruption, headed by the former NYPD Commissioner prosecutor. We have 1,000 people in our organization devoted to internal investigation. That's an awful lot of oversight. Does that mean that some people in the department are not going to violate their public trust? Of course not. Understand, we're dealing with, when you include our civilian employees, we're dealing with over 15,000 employees. So we have to be on guard for people who will violate their oath of office. I don't think we need additional oversight.
Commissioner, outside of...
Bob Mueller, the director, again today said, the job, he was testifying to Captain Lillen again, said the job you guys are doing, the NYPD is first rate. Does it help to have that kind of support, when there has been some talk, some of the surveillance and stuff, but he, has been pretty outspoken in support of the NYPD.
Well, I think it's appropriate. I mean, I have great respect for Director Mueller. We have a very good working relationship. I think the support is appropriate.
Commissioner, beyond gun buyback programs, what ideas have members of the City Council given you as pertaining to policing strategies to reduce violence?
I'm sorry?
You were sounding a note that you were
I'm still
soliciting...
waiting for those strategies. I haven't heard them, other than gun buyback programs.
Is that
I
really...
think we'd like to, I think it's a problem in communities of color. They recognize that problem in some quarters. We had the clergy from Brooklyn reach out to us and form the Clergy Coalition because of, specifically they said because of black on black crime. They took that problem head on. I think political leadership is lacking in terms of speaking about the problem, speaking out about the problem. Yes, they support gun buyback programs. We support gun buyback programs. It's like chicken soup. It can't hurt. But so we support it. But you still have an inordinately high level of violence in those communities, and I think you need leadership to speak out. Number one, about the fact that it's even happening. People are talking about stop-and-frisk policy or policy of engagement. We understand that it's of concern, but the bigger issue is the level of violence that exists. Even though it's down dramatically, it's still way disproportionate. And it'd be nice to hear some constructive remarks about how you address that problem.
In the wake of the Ramarley Graham shooting...
Do you think some of the negative publicity surrounding stop-and-frisk, Muslim surveillance, and Occupy is causing the decreasing headcount in the department that you were talking upstairs?
Do I think it's causing?
Yeah, do you think there's like a morale issue that's...
No, our attrition, percentage of attrition has gone down. In other words, we have 0.5% of people who leave the department other than retirement. If you were a Fortune 500 company, less than 5%, you'd be happy. We have 0.5%. So that's not the case.
Commissioner,
people are retiring at a much slower rate.
Commissioner, the counterterrorism budget has been...
The officer involved in the shooting of the 45th precinct. The officer at the 45th precinct.
There was an incident where an off-duty officer was returning his child to his wife, separated with divorce. Her boyfriend was there. He had a dispute with the police officer, the sergeant. He took his gun somehow. He fired shots in the air, fired shots at his car, and no one was injured.
Commissioner, the counterterrorism budget has remained very high, even as you've cut other things to the bone. Is there a time when we might see a sort of a peace dividend from the weakening of Al Qaeda or the Arab Spring?
Well,
some of these issues.
Possibly, but we don't think we're there yet. We hope so.
I'm sorry.
That's the case. We hope that's the case, but we don't see that right now. Neither does our law enforcement community or intelligence community. They don't see a lessening of the threat. I don't think we can lower our vigilance. But anything that happens as far as the diminishment of Al Qaeda and their ability to create havoc and kill people is good news. But we have to be concerned about their surrogates in Somalia, in Yemen, in Nigeria, and we have to be concerned about the lone wolf threat in this country.
In the wake of
Quite frankly, we don't see any diminishing of that threat in the near term. I hope it's right. I hope it happens.
Commissioner, the new legislation passed about the all crimes DNA. Just your thoughts on that, and how helpful do you think that's going to be?
Yeah, I think it's very good news. I certainly commend the government. I know it wasn't easy to put this together. It is very important for us to get it full, and I think it's going to go a long way in helping us solve crimes. So, congratulations to the government and to the Senate and Assembly for getting it done.
what changes are you considering to plainclothes training in the wake of the Marley Graham shooting?
Well, we trained our SNU units. We did additional training. We first of all did an inspection of all the SNU units in the city. There were 36 SNU units. We sent them for additional training to the police range. And we'll see what other training is necessary. We constantly train, constantly assessing as to whether or not we do need more training.
Any deficiencies noted in their training?
I'm sorry.
Do you know why the mother arrested in 107 precinct for custodial interference? Do you know why she didn't have custody of her child?
Why she did not?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner, there's been issues raised with the NYPD credentialing process, arrests of reporters, and also the conduct of DCPI. How do you think the department is doing when it comes to media relations, and do you think there need to be improvements there?
I think we're doing well. I think we have a good relationship with the press. I think the nature of what we do sometimes out in the street is going to be it's going to be some pushing and shoving. It's just the world in which you live and the police live. I met with Deadwood. I met with a delegation of people from the press club. We try to work these things out. You have a lot of contact, you being the press collective, you have a lot of contact with the police literally on a daily basis. And the vast majority of those contacts go well. We want to facilitate what you do. That's what we're supposed to do. We understand. We're dealing with human beings. Sometimes we'll be conflict. We're working on it. As much as we can, as quickly as we can.
Thanks. Commissioner, what did your chiefs discover when they were conducting the citywide review of SNU operations?
There were some, I can't say there were anything major that I'm aware of, but there were certain things that were in the order that we put out that had to be more closely adhered to.
What were the variations?
I'm sorry?
Pardon me, what were the variations from the order, sir?
I can't give you the specifics of it. There were some things about they were wearing, some of the observation people were not wearing rain jackets, they were wearing civilian clothes, that sort of thing. So I think the training was well received, and we're going to continue.
Commissioner, one of the questions at the hearing was about the disparity between African Americans and whites in terms of their attitudes towards stop and frisk and the surveillance of Muslims. I was wondering, why do you think that is?
Disparity in the policy?
In the poll, right?
You're going to have to ask the people more familiar with polling than I am. It's a poll results. Okay.